I knew something was wrong the moment the gravel outside stopped crunching. It wasn't the sound itself. It was a sudden absence of it, the kind of silence predators make just before they lunge. I froze mid-step in my workshop, a strip of sandpaper still in my hand, and listened. 3 voices. Low, whispering, smug. Men who thought they owned whatever ground they stepped on. I walked to the dusty workshop window and peeled back the curtain just enough to see outside. There they were. 3 members of the Red Creek Ridge Estates HOA, wearing matching Navy windbreakers like they fancied themselves some sort of self-appointed tactical unit. Their usual weapons, clipboards and pens, were gone, replaced with bolt cutters, a lock-breaking kit, and a crowbar. A cold knot formed in my stomach. For months, I'd dealt with their petty letters about aesthetic compliance. For months, I'd tossed their finds into the trash. For months, I'd let their smug visits roll off my back like rain. My home wasn't even inside their over-manicured neighborhood, not even close. I lived on 10 acres of rural land the county had approved long, before the HOA even existed. But today they hadn't come to talk. Today they'd come to act. Crossing onto my land was one thing, but breaking in? That was a new level of stupid. I wiped my hands on a rag, stepped out the back door, and circled around to the porch without making a sound. The air smelled sharp with pine. Clouds hung heavy and low, promising rain. The world felt too still, like everything around me sensed a danger before I fully did. Boone, their leader, big guy, beard trimmed with the precision of a man who liked controlling things, marched up my steps like he owned them. Grant and Lucas stood behind him, shifting uneasily, both looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. Boone wedged the crowbar against my front door frame. "All right," he barked. "Let's get this over with." Are you sure about this, Bo?" Grant whispered. His fingers twitched nervously around the bolt cutters. "This is private property." Boone didn't look back. He ignored citations, ignored inspection requests. "So now we enforce compliance. That's our right." I stepped forward, calm and quiet as a shadow. "Morning, boys." They spun around. Lucas yelped. Grant dropped the bolt cutters. Boone froze, crowbar still poised. His eyes widened, not at me, but at the shotgun in my hands. I held it low, angled at the ground, fingers nowhere near the trigger. It wasn't even loaded. I'd been cleaning it earlier. But I didn't have to tell them that. WH, what you doing with that?" Lucas stammered. "Cleaning it," I said, until I noticed I had guests. Uninvited ones. Boone tried to puff up his chest, but his bravado cracked around the edges. "We're here on official HOA business." "On my porch?" I asked, with break-in tools. Grant cleared his throat. "We just needed to check for code violations." "Code violations?" I repeated. "The county approved this home. Your HOA has no jurisdiction here." Boone lifted his chin, gripping the crowbar tighter. "We voted to expand our jurisdiction." "You voted?" I let out a humorless laugh. "That's not how property law works." His jaw twitched, but he said nothing. I took one slow step closer. "Let me ask you something," I said, my voice steady. "What makes you think a homeowners association has the right to invade a man's home?" The question hung between us like smoke. No one answered. Grant inched backward. Lucas kept glancing toward the truck, as if hoping it would start itself and drive him away. Only Boone stood firm, but even he looked uncertain now, like the ground beneath his feet suddenly wasn't as solid as he thought. "You realize this is trespassing," I continued. "You realize breaking and entering is a felony. You realize everything you're doing is on camera." I pointed to a black dome camera under the porch eave. Boone followed my gesture, and a bead of sweat formed on his brow. He swallowed. "You have cameras." 3. High resolution. With audio. The color drained from Lucas's face. "We should leave," Grant mumbled. "This isn't worth it." Boone snapped at him. "Shut up. We're in the right." "No," I corrected. "You're in trouble." The first raindrops began to fall, slow, heavy taps on the roof. The air grew colder, and all 3 of them flinched at the thunder rumbling in the distance. Boone threw the crowbar down with a metallic clatter. "You think you can threaten us with a weapon and get away with it," he spat. "I never pointed it," I said. "Never threatened you. If anyone here is committing a crime, it's you. And you know it." Boone's eyes narrowed to burning slits. "You think this is over?" I stared him down. "I know it isn't. But I also know you're walking a very dangerous line." For a moment, silence ruled the porch. Just the rain, the wind, and Boone's heavy breathing. Then he spat on the ground, turned sharply, and stormed down the steps. Lucas and Grant scrambled after him, slipping in the wet mud. As the truck tore down my long gravel drive, mud flying in every direction, I lowered the shotgun and exhaled slowly. I should have felt relieved. But something else stirred inside me, something colder, something sharper. Boone's parting words echoed louder than the thunder. "You think this is over?" I knew men like Boone. Men whose egos were too fragile to take a bruise without plotting revenge. Men who use authority, even pretend authority, to fill the hollow places inside themselves. I'd handled his little stunt today. But what would he try next? How far would he go? And when he struck again, would he come quietly, or would he come ready to burn my whole world down? As I stood on my porch, rain soaking into the boards, I realized something I hadn't admitted yet. This wasn't the end. This was the beginning. The storm tapered off by sunrise, leaving the woods glistening and the air thick with that strange calm that always follows chaos. I stepped outside with a mug of steaming coffee, half expecting the HOA's Navy Windbreaker Brigade to be hiding behind a pine tree with clipboards raised like shields. But the yard was still. Too still. The kind of stillness that made your instincts itch. That's when I saw them. Bright orange slips, at least 24, plastered across my porch rail, mailbox, truck, and even the side of my workshop. They flapped in the breeze like warning flags of a battle someone else thought they'd already won. I tore one down. Mandatory appearance before HOA board, 24 hours. Failure to comply will result in property liens. Severe non-compliance. I snorted. "You have no authority," I muttered. "No jurisdiction, no brains, and definitely no shame." I gathered the stack of violations, tossed them into the firebox, and watched them crumple into ash. They curled like dying insects, disappearing into nothing. Satisfying as it was, it didn't settle me. If Boone was bold enough to break into my home yesterday, this was nothing more than the prelude to whatever came next. And Boone never stopped at prelude. I didn't have long to wait. By 7:30 a.m., the rumble of engines echoed up my driveway. One vehicle, then a second, then a third. Black SUVs, polished and menacing, rolled in like some sort of suburban enforcement convoy. I stepped onto the porch just as they came to a stop. Boone jumped out of the lead SUV. Sunglasses on despite the overcast sky, jaw clenched tight enough to crack a molar. Lucas and Grant were with him again, but now they had reinforcements. 4 other board members, all wearing the same Navy windbreakers with the HOA logo printed across the back. Because, of course, nothing screams authority like matching jackets. Behind them, 2 men in casual streetwear unloaded camera gear. A gimbal, handheld rigs, and worst of all, a drone that buzzed into the air like an angry wasp and hovered above my property line. "What in the hell?" I whispered. Boone marched forward dramatically, making sure the cameras caught every smug inch of his approach. "This is documentation," he announced, projecting his voice like he was starring in a courtroom drama. "You have refused to cooperate with mandatory inspections, and you have escalated the situation by threatening HOA agents with a weapon." I raised an eyebrow. "Yesterday I was cleaning a shotgun inside my house. You and your band of geniuses came onto my porch with bolt cutters and crowbars. You obstructed compliance," he snapped, "and that will be addressed in the official hearing." "What hearing?" I asked. "Your HOA doesn't cover my land. You know it, I know it, and the county knows it." Boone smirked. "Actually, that's where you're wrong." He pulled out a thick manila folder with a flourish, like he was presenting the final clue in a magic trick. "The HOA voted to annex this property at a special meeting 2 nights ago. Majority approval makes it binding." I stared at him. Then I burst out laughing. Boone's smile faltered. "What's so funny?" You think you can annex my property with a show of hands meeting. I said, this isn't a middle school club. This is land law. It's valid, Boone said, but I noticed a twitch in his left eyelid. We followed procedure. I pulled my phone from my back pocket and swiped a few times. You might have gotten away with that if your HOA wasn't currently suspended by the county. Boone blinked. Suspended? What are you talking about? Your charter, I said, pulled pending investigation. He snatched the phone from my hand before I could stop him and stared at the screen. It was all there, public record, dated just this morning. His face drained of color. That's impossible, he muttered. They can't do that. Oh, they can, I said, and they did. I made a call around 5 this morning, after your little violation confetti party. Turns out, dozens of residents filed complaints about your leadership. Misuse of funds, coercion, threats, you name it. That's. Boone shook his head, choking on denial. There has to be a mistake. Call the county clerk, I said. Ask. He did. The phone rang. Boone paced. The others stood behind him in stiff silence, avoiding eye contact. The drone buzzed lower, capturing attention like some dystopian newsreel. Finally, someone answered on the other end. Boone exhaled sharply. Yes, this is Boone Lee, president of Red Creek Ridge Estates HOA. I need clarification on. A pause, then more talking. Then Boone's face collapsed. As suspended, he stammered. No authority? No, there must be some kind of appeal. Another pause. What do you mean you can't discuss an active investigation? He snapped, panic strangling his voice. He lowered the phone slowly, staring at it like it might spontaneously combust in his palm. Then he looked at me. You did this. No, I said calmly. Your behavior did this. I just let the right people know. Boone dropped the phone. It hit the ground with a dull thud. I stepped forward. Now let me explain the choices you have. They are quite simple. I held up one finger. Option 1, leave my property. Take your drone, your cameras, your windbreakers, and walk away. Another finger. Option 2, stay until the sheriff arrives. They're already en route. Grant didn't hesitate. I'm leaving. Lucas took 2 steps backward. His right, Bo. We cross a serious line. The board members scattered like mice fleeing a sinking ship. The camera crew shut down their gear in a hurry. One guy nearly dropped his gimbal. Within a minute, Boone was standing alone in front of me, drenched in humiliation. The sky brightened. Birds chirped. The world waited. Boone's voice came out thin and sharp. You'll pay for this. No, I said, Boone, you will. And then came the sirens. 2 sheriff's cruisers rolled down the drive, gravel spitting beneath their tires. Deputy Hardin stepped out, an old colleague of mine from my law enforcement days. He tipped his hat in my direction. Morning, he said. Got a report of trespassing. Boone pointed at me wildly. Arrest him. He threatened us with a weapon. He obstructed official inspection. Hardin held up a hand. Boone, your HOA is suspended. You've got no authority, and we've already had multiple complaints about your behavior in the last 24 hours. You know better. Boone stuttered, eyes darting from the deputies to me as if searching for an escape route. You got the porch cam footage. Hardin asked me. All of it, I confirmed. Audio included. Boone's face drained of all remaining color. That'll do it, Hardin said. He turned to Boone. Boone Lee, you're being detained on suspicion of trespassing, attempted unlawful entry, and harassment. Boone didn't fight. He didn't yell. He didn't even breathe loudly. He just lowered his head as the cuffs clicked around his wrists. The deputies guided him into the back of the cruiser. No HOA windbreakers rushed to his defense. No camera crew filmed his exit. No board members waited to back him up. Boone rode away alone. And the strangest thing happened as the sirens faded into the distance. Peace returned. The land felt lighter. The wind moved freer. Even the bird songs sounded sharper, brighter, bolder. Over the next few weeks, the story rippled through the county like wildfire. The entire HOA board resigned. The HOA dissolved altogether. Boone faced multiple charges and an ongoing financial investigation. Neighbors who never spoke a word before now stopped by to shake my hand and thank me for standing up to him. But me? I rebuilt my fence, fixed the porch, cleaned the mud tracks from where Boone's boots had trampled the steps. Life returned to quiet simplicity. And yet, every so often, I remember the moment Boone realized the truth, that he wasn't the sheriff of some suburban kingdom, that he wasn't above the law he pretended to enforce, that the only thing he'd ever truly controlled was his own downfall. That's the thing about revenge. Sometimes you don't have to take it. Sometimes all you have to do is let a bully swing hard enough to knock himself out. Boone swung, and he never saw the ground coming.